This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love to work alone. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Your Own Best Company. My name is Franklin Taggart, and this podcast is my idea. This is a podcast that's specifically directed to people who love working alone. And we're going to be addressing all kinds of questions and issues that folks like us face. And in our theme today, we're going to be talking with insurance agent Danielle Lammon. Danielle is a licensed insurance agent in Aurora, Colorado. She's also the president of the Rotary Club of Aurora, military wife and mother, and a very active community member. The other day we had a conversation and she was telling me all these different things that she's been a part of just as a volunteer and as a community member. And it's a very long list that I'm not going to share with you right now, but it is admirable. And I'm going to just say, welcome, Danielle, and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. It's exciting to be here with you today.
When we were talking the other day, I think there were a couple of areas that I was really interested in having you speak to, and one of them is insurance needs of the small business, and also some of the insights that you've gained from your experience as a small business owner over the years. Now, remind me again, how long have you had your agency?
I'm in my 7th year of owning my agency. I've been in the industry about 10 years now.
So before that, you were working for another agency, and then you decided to open your own agency at some point. What led you to wanting to do that?
I think it was having that experience and realizing that I could do it better in my own way, as far as nothing wrong with any other agent and my friend who I was working with. But when you can become your own entrepreneur, you really get to design your business plan and how you want your business to run. And that's what really was interesting to me and when I went down that path.
Now, what did you learn from the other agency that you were a part of that you wanted to do differently?
I really have a passion for out in the community, which is what you were just talking about. And that was one of the things I went into becoming my own business owner, is so that I can use my business as an outlet and I can make a difference in my community. So my agency provides me the income, some extra resources, money from different foundations that I'm able to therefore give back out in the community. And it was also important for me to be able to have the time that I could step away and volunteer as much as I wanted and have my team do that. So we do team volunteering projects. I do quite a bit and sit on a lot of boards. So that was just something different when you're working for somebody else. You don't always get that freedom because they want you at your desk at a certain time. And being my own agent is one of those areas where I was like, no, this is actually how I want to run my agency and what speaks to my heart for being out and about in the public.
When you started your agency, was it just you, or did you have other people that you had already hired on?
It was with other staff. Part of my contract as being an agent licensed in Colorado, I do have to have staff, and that's just who my exclusive contract is with. Okay. And so I have, I've had anything from just one staff up to, we've had 6 at one time. And right now I've got 2 full-time staff and I guess a 1/4 staff, if you will, kind of like an assistant to me. So she works just like 3 mornings a week.
Okay. And do you have sights on growing that?
Not right now. I'm in the process of buying another agency, so we will definitely be adding on staff as need be. But I kind of look at hiring at the point of when we are just so busy we can't keep up, then we need to hire staff. And so right now, and based on our culture, we just have a great agency culture. We're being able to meet all of our customers' needs. And I'm still out and about in the community. So right now we're just happy where we are and working on our goals for the year.
Now, you've already mentioned you're the president of the Rotary this year. Mm-hmm. Is that how long is your term there?
Rotary presidents are 1 year. So we
Okay.
start July 1 and end June 30th. So the club I'm a president of is the Aurora Club.
Okay. And that's a fairly large one, isn't it?
Yes, right now we have around 75, 76 members in our club.
Very good.
Mhm.
And Aurora, for those of you who don't know, is a suburb of Denver. And it's one of the larger suburbs. In fact, isn't it the largest at this point?
I believe it is. Right now, Aurora is about 160 square miles.
Yeah.
So it's very large. It spans over 3 different counties and just a large area. And it actually goes all the way out east that people don't realize, like towards Bennett.
It's interesting to me that that one of the reasons that you wanted to go into business was that it could support your volunteer habit.
That's a good way. I have it. Yeah.
Now, talk to me a little bit about when did volunteering become so important to you?
Volunteering has actually been something I've done since I was just a little girl. When I was young, I grew up with a cousin who is handicapped. And so from before I guess I really can remember, I've been doing things with Special Olympics back east when I lived there. And then just as I got older, just kind of continued finding different areas, even, being younger, whether that was a mentor like Boys and Girls Club when I was in high school. And we still did some volunteering with Special Olympics. And then now moving on to, I guess, bigger areas, if you will. We became the affiliate for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in
Yeah.
Aurora. So now that's a huge undertaking for volunteers. So it's just kind of grown over the years and grown over the time that I've had the time. So when my kids were younger, I did a lot more of, I guess we'll call the parent volunteering,
Yeah.
PTA, fundraising for sports teams, that kind of activities. And then now I'm at a city state level with volunteer.
You also mentioned that one of the things that you do is some work with business owners, helping them to learn the ropes and figure out the ins and outs of their business. What kind of a context are you doing that in?
It's really just when I'm in a lot of different networking groups. So I share my expertise on the insurance side, and I have a business degree in project management. Was my first degree, and then oddly enough, being an insurance agent, I also have a biology degree with a minor in psych, which does come in handy some days.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in those networking aspects. I'm an ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce, and then I sit on a couple of occupational advisory committees through school districts. So mentoring, I sit for the business and marketing. And so mentoring high school kids that are trying to develop their own business ideas, or even for college and vocational schools. So it's just kind of depending where we're at and what the situation is. But when I talk about it, I think being an entrepreneur is awesome and the best thing you can do. But I think that there's a lot of misconceptions that people think when they're going to go into business and they're going to become millionaires, or they're immediately going to have all this money. Or a lot of times I talk to people and they have got great ideas, but it's left, right, and center. And so a lot of what I do and talk to them about and becoming that mentor is just kind of like honing in. What is that one thing you really want to do?
Yeah.
What do you really want to be successful at? Because then you can add in different businesses and different specialties within your business, but really focusing on that one aspect to begin with.
Um, so some of the misconceptions that you see are people just having unrealistic expectations about what's going to happen financially and otherwise.
Yes, and I think they have ideas of things like, I'm going to deliver this, but I'm also going to build furniture, and I'm going to do photography, and I'm going to, and it's like, all of that's great, but you're not going to be great at anything. You're just going to be mediocre on a few things, and
Yeah.
probably not really be successful in that sense of just finding your niche.
So really finding that focus is something that you help them do.
Right. And I talk about from insurance because the basics of it, if you're all over the place, you're high risk in insurance, if you
Yeah.
look at it that way, because your risk is all over the place. It's not defined, versus if you have one industry, say, as a coach, because I know you do coaching, that's your focus. That is your business vertical. Now we can say, what are your risks as a business owner, as a coach, and how can we customize and tailor that coverage to what you're offering, because we can define it, versus if you're a coach and a gardener and a driver, your risk is all over the place, if you will.
So if you're working with someone who's a business owner or starting a business, what are the insurance needs what are the bases that have to be covered?
Well, if you have employees, what you have to have is workers' comp insurance. So if you have employees, you have to have that. If you are a solopreneur, you don't need workers' comp, because you're not going to file a claim on yourself, is kind of what I say. So I carry workers' comp because I have employees, but I decline coverage for myself because, one, I'm never going to file a claim on myself and charge my own business if I, hit my knee at the office and got hurt or something. So that's one of those things that you do have to have workers' comp. So that's definitely something. General liability, it's not required in quite a few industries. And that's one of those things that people, I think, don't realize the need for it. Even a home-based business needs general liability insurance, or even what we call business owners. We call it BOPs, so BOP, business owners policies. And what that's giving you is your liability coverage if it's something you do on purpose or not on purpose, because things happen. It's also giving you coverage for business owners if you've got business personal property. And that could be as simple as your laptop and your cell phone and some marketing materials, which may not be a lot, but if your briefcase was stolen at an event, it's going to take money to replace that. So there's a couple of aspects. And then there's also, when you're looking at those coverages, there's also medical coverage. So not for you, but if you're meeting with somebody in person and they trip and they get hurt, there's medical plus liability coverage, because what business owners, especially home-based business owners, don't realize is you are actually the first person liable in that situation, because the only reason that client, that customer, prospective person is there is to meet with you. Yeah. So it's kind of that misconception. And even for, say, somebody who does, Tupperware came to mind. That's an old school one, but Pampered Chef, something like that. It's so important, because when you're in someone else's home, again, that liability is yours first, primarily as that business owner, not the homeowners. The homeowners come secondarily if somebody gets hurt. And it's very, very reasonable. In most cases, home-based business policies, which is something I specialize in for Colorado, they start at $250 a year for $1 million of coverage. It's extremely reasonable when you're looking at the big picture. If you were sued and had to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars for somebody's injury.
For someone who's in kind of an advisory type of a role, like a coach or a therapist, or someone who might be like an advisor to other businesses and things like that, are there any special kinds of riders that they need to consider?
I would still recommend a business owner's policy, and you could do it. And because you may not have a physical office location, it does come under a home-based business. Okay. And it's still giving you that liability. So it's protecting you if somebody doesn't like the outcome and they sue you. Again, whether you're really at fault or not, we're just a litigious people state that you want to make sure you're covered. And again, it also gives you coverage. So if you were to rent something, so say you did a seminar one day and you rented an area, your policy gives you coverage for that as well. Okay. So if you accidentally knock over a mic that spills water and therefore catches on fire, you have protection as well for that location you're renting.
Are there certain things that that you see where business owners leave themselves most vulnerable?
It's probably in that liability piece. Yeah. As a business owner. And then I think too, your business personal property. They said, I mean, things are just so expensive that, we go and we don't think about buying a $1,200 cell phone, but the minute that's stolen, that's a whole different perspective, mind shift for us. Same thing with if you have a big fancy MacBook and you're doing graphic design or different coaching on that, that really adds up. And again, in the event of a loss. But if your homeowner's policy, or if you don't have renter's insurance and you had a loss, it's not covering your business either, because that's how you made money. There's an exclusion there.
Yeah.
So people don't realize that either. So when you have your home-based business and we're talking about, okay, what's the square footage of your office? What is your business equipment inside there? That's where people leave themselves open sometimes, and it hurts in the event of a loss. So people are like, no, it's not going to happen to me. I don't need that. But then we have something like all of the fires that just happened up in Louisville.
Yeah.
Well, if you ran your business out of your home, you lost your home, plus you lost your office. And so that's just a way to protect yourself.
I have a lot of people who I work with and who follow this podcast, who are people like, they're artists or they're craftspeople. I'm curious what kinds of coverage they might want to consider for things like, are there any things that they need to consider for inventory or for any kind of, I don't know. I know that they do need liability just for the materials that they use and the, that they're putting things in people's homes that that do carry sometimes risk. But are there any protections that those kinds of folks need to consider?
It depends on how much equipment they have. You can also do what's called an inland marine policy. Mm-hmm. And so an inland marine policy is basically like scheduling. It's scheduling. So if it was on your home policy, it would be called scheduling personal property. An inland marine is scheduling your business property. So if it's something that has a higher value, then you would want to schedule that. And kind of that's an add-on policy. Your business owners can provide some of that, but if you've got specific equipment, and the one I'm thinking of is a DJ, I don't know why that's coming to my mind, but a DJ, and they have all of that sound equipment, and if they're at a location, they would want an inland marine policy, because if somebody were to walk away, they wouldn't want just an average amount. They would want what the actual cost of that is. So scheduling it is giving you the actual value of that piece of equipment.
Okay. In trying to find an agent, what are the things that are really important for a small business owner to consider?
I always recommend a local agent, somebody local, and local could be right in your neighborhood. Local could be within your state. Local, somebody you can call and talk to. Mm-hmm. There's great companies out there, but most of them go through an 800 number where you're just a number. You're just somebody else on the other line, if you will. Versus local agents like myself, we really do know our community. We know our state. We know what's happening. And I think that is the huge benefit to calling a local agent, because they get to know you. You know, if you would call my office, you would talk to one of three of us. We would know who you are. We would know, and look at how we're going to best protect you, because we tailor our coverage to each customer versus you're just somebody calling in on an 800 number, if you will.
Now, on the personal side of things for a business owner, what are the things that they need to consider as far as protecting and covering their family?
So if you own a home, you should have homeowners insurance.
Yeah. And
if you're a business owner, you should have a personal umbrella policy. So that is protecting you above and beyond your other liabilities on your autos and your home. Mm-hmm. And everybody says, well, I have an LLC. Yes, you have an LLC, but if somebody personally sues you, they still know you're the owner of that business.
Yeah.
So yes, there's protection, but it also will mean you will bring all of that information and financial assets to the table if you're sued.
So it's just additional protection that the LLC doesn't provide.
Well, a personal umbrella policy protects you personally, doesn't protect business.
Okay.
Business protects you, business doesn't protect you personally.
So you need both.
So you do need both, yes. I would recommend, and again, your assets, look at your assets. If you look at, in Colorado, if you're sued, you can have your wages garnished up to 25% of your bring home pay for your household. So think about how much you and your spouse bring home, and can you live with 25% less of that bring home pay a month?
Yeah.
Think about how much equity you have. Over $75,000 of equity in a home can have a lien put against it to pay a debt. They can look at your retirement accounts, your savings accounts. They can even go after personal assets, as far as if you own a car worth more than $5,500, they could put a lien against it. If you have personal jewelry items more than $1,500, you really could get raked through coals, if you will, if you don't have the right kind of protection for your personal family. And then again, that family level as well, or business level. So family and then business.
So much to think about, right?
It is a lot to think about, which is why I talk to a local agent, because that's our job, is to make sure that we are protecting you in that, asking those questions. Just like when you go to the doctor, they want to know all kinds of things. As an agent, we want to know the same things. Not your health, but we want all the details.
Well, I think the other benefit is that I think it's important to have personal relationships with the people who are, handling this kind of personal information.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really want to know this person and trust them as much as you can.
Yes.
If they're going to be representing you in finding the best coverage that you need, and making sure that every protection that is possible is in place, right?
Absolutely. And you should be doing annual checkups with your insurance agent as well. Reviewing your policies, making sure coverages are up to date, making sure that, there weren't any changes, whether, somebody you just did an ad on. I just talked to a customer today who just did $70,000 of improvements on their home. Those are things we want to know, because we want to make sure that the dwelling coverage on their home is up to date. If they had a loss, that they weren't underinsured.
What would be the best way for a person to start in terms of learning what they need? Is it just call an agent and get it straight from the person that you're going to work with? Is that the best way to go?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm always open and happy to talk to anybody. So that's what we do. I'm not, I guess if you will say, I'm not a hard salesperson, because I got into this industry to help people. Yeah. And I always say, if I just do what's right by people, the money will come, and it has. And we've seen that growth, because we really put our customers first, and it's not about that back end for me. It's how am I making sure you're taken care of today, and your family's protected, and you have peace of mind. And customers ask me all the time, like, well, what do you think on this? And I, like, say a deductible on your home. Well, it really comes down to you personally, because if you're comfortable writing a $10,000 check and it doesn't make you think twice, and maybe you have to do that twice a year, then maybe you're comfortable at that kind of deductible. But if the thought of writing $1,000 check just makes you quiver, then you need to make sure you have coverages in your deductibles that's the lowest we can go. But that's that difference of somebody saying, well, what do you think my deductible should be? It's not about it's what are you comfortable with? And that's how we look at all of that for our customers. Are you comfortable with a $1,000 deductible? Are you comfortable, say, on your auto with a $250? Or would you rather maybe pay $10 more a month, knowing if you had to get a windshield, you have $0 out of pocket? Yeah. So everybody has a little different, and that's where talking to me, talking to a local agent and interview agents, and get that feeling to see how are they pushing their agenda, or are they asking you fact-finding questions so that they can help guide you along that personalized coverage for you and your family.
How long did it take you to get this level of familiarity with the industry?
It definitely took me, I guess, a little bit of time, but I think a lot of it and it's probably mindset, just kind of came. I just feel like it kind of just came there. Yeah. I know there's a learning curve. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has to go through a learning curve to get comfortable and everything. But it's probably by the time I became my own agent, I was ready. And maybe that's just kind of that other piece to it, where I was like, okay, I'm ready to jump in.
Yeah.
Because when I first started getting into the industry, I was like, nah, I'm not going to be my own agent. That's, my kids, I'm becoming an empty nester. I'm ready to get out and do something. And then it just kind of really grabbed me, I guess, if you will. And then I really just kind of jumped in and just run my agency a little bit different, but that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Yeah.
So, as a business person, I'm curious, what were the areas that you were most surprised by when you were starting your business and starting to grow it?
I think it really comes down to kind of looking back a little bit. Some of the areas that were difficult sometimes was just getting the credit for or the capital.
Yeah.
So, I had to have so much that I showed to become an agent. And to be honest, like we refinanced our house and had numbers on paper because that's what we had to do. And starting that first bank account and things, they just one cost more than you think they are. We
Yeah.
just moved offices and had a build out and yeah,
Uh,
spent quite a bit of money on it.
ouch.
Um, and but I think it's that piece because there are times when you're like, I started my agency scratch, which means literally like most business owners, I started zero. We had to get every customer, we had to grow.
Yeah.
And so you're not having that consistent income, but you still have bills, you still have overhead, you still have payroll, whether that's to other people or even to yourself. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize, that there is a little bit of a slow start to that.
When you were first, in your new agency, what were the most important points of marketing that you found?
Anything we could do for free.
Yeah.
So I still do that, just because, again, that's an area. But, and looking at some things have an ROI, your return of investment on it, and then some don't. Some things, I guess my advice on that is look at who do you want to be in front of,
Yeah.
and who, market in front of your ideal customer. So, and sometimes that marketing is just buying an ad in the local high school yearbook,
Yeah.
or sponsoring the like elementary schools. A lot of times have a like a phone directory or like a school directory. Super easy. You're not probably going to get much business out of that, but you're getting your name out there. You're
Yeah.
saying, I am a local person. This is the school down the street from me, and I think that helped quite a bit. So kind of figuring out and all the things that I do out in the community, people have asked me like, well, what do you get from that? And I'm like, okay, well, some things I do because that's what makes my heart feel good. Some things I do because it's business stuff.
Yeah.
Some things I do because it's just getting brand recognition, getting my name out there. So like, I think it's kind of looking at, again, what's your ideal customer? Who do you want to get in front of? How can you do it, for free? How can you do it mid-level? And then maybe what's that reach thing that you think, okay, I'm just going to invest this in it. And if I got 2 clients out of it, or, I get 1 deal out of it, depending on what in business you're in, look at that piece of it when you're trying to figure out that ROI.
Or have there been any like marketing campaigns or any kind of tactics or tools that you've run across that you ended up being disappointed in?
Yeah, a lot. Sometimes, well, again, it's kind of, it makes me laugh sometimes, and I hate to say it that way, but I'm a captive insurance agent, which means I write for one company.
Yeah.
And so when I first started, I would have people come to me and be like, oh, well, it's only $5,000, or, this or that, trying to sell me these big marketing packages because of the big name over my door. But I was like, time out, time out. That's a product I sell. Like, this is my checkbook we're talking about. Like, I can't afford that. And so you kind of get a little bit of that, and you gotta, I think, filter out, nothing against people who do the promos that talk about like, it's for the school. I'm always like, just email me. Like, even my staff is like, oh, just send her an email, because I'm like, my kids went to high school. I can't tell, I've never one time and I've had 4 kids go through high school, seen a school shirt with businesses all over the back.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be smart about what somebody's asking you to market on.
Right.
and ask some of those follow-up questions like, am I the only person in this industry that's going to be in this ad or in this booklet? Um, and then I get approached for like grocery carts and the back of your receipts. Now, since I've been approached for years, I literally read them all the time now because of that. And I play in that world sometimes, just brand recognition and think, okay, marketing wise this year, I can afford an extra few $100s here, even if I get no business out of it, but you might see my name.
Have there been any of those things that have been surprisingly good for you?
Trying to think. Yeah, I think it's just being your actual authentic self. I say that all the time. And
Yeah.
there's agents who have great success on mailers, and agents have success on different things, and I think it just depends on the timing, if you will, and how aggressive you are, and aggressive also how much you want to put money behind that.
Yeah.
And so I personally am not super aggressive on throwing a lot of money in that. I rather throw it into education for my staff, hosting events, things that are more who I really am as a person and as a business owner. So I think it's looking at that self reflection on that and say, are you the same person in a networking meeting that you are in your office or
Yeah.
that you are at home at night? Or are you not? And I think people see through that.
Yeah, I think so too. Are you excited about where your agency is going? You say you're getting ready to buy another agency in addition to the one that you already have. So you're going to be expanding. Are you excited about the possibilities of where that can take you?
Absolutely. I actually have two agencies already.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, I do have two agencies already. We co-located them in October. So I used to have two locations and we actually co-located them into this one bigger office when we moved into a bigger office. And I am very excited about buying another agency and growing. It will almost double our size, which is exciting and scary at the same time
Yeah.
because it's for those people who have to have sales goals or meet sales goals that aren't always set by yourself and set by a larger company type of thing. Like in my situation, there's a little bit of that fear as well because you have to perform and you have to perform at a higher level. And so that always brings a little bit of that anxiousness, I guess, if you will, a little bit of that fear. But I think a little fear and that excitement of fear is actually a good thing. The universe
Yeah.
telling you to kind of push forward.
Have you found that you're motivated by achievement, or is there something else that's driving the bus for you?
I think achievement is great for everybody or anybody that you kind of we just found out our top numbers were kind of top in the country and top in our state, and that is really exciting, especially because I personally know the challenges we had last year, like being short staffed and moving and a lot of different pieces, and then throw in a huge pandemic and a lot of things that we've had to learn how to shift. So on that part, it is really exciting. But when I look at what did I set out to do, and so for me, it's a little bit of if I'm feeling down in the sense of okay, sales are low, where are we at? How are we going to find this? And we all as business owners kind of get in that thought, and how am I going to grow my business? But then I kind of look back and say, okay, why did I start my agency? I started to help people and I started to make a difference in my community. Am I doing that? Yes, yes. Okay, then I'm going to keep trucking along and I might take another like a webinar on a new topic or how to market differently and you have to be able to shift and grow personally on new ideas
Yeah.
and roll with the punches. Who didn't all roll with going with full Zoom or trying to coach staff when you're not in the same office?
Yeah. So you've had to rise to some challenges that were unexpected, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you had it to do all over again, would you do anything differently?
Probably not. I probably wouldn't. There's a few things. I mean, I think anybody, maybe wouldn't have hired a person or two or held on to them as long if you're thinking about, when you're paying salaries and that aspect of it, but not necessarily. Sometimes I say, I think if I started over again, I probably would have purchased a book of business to have cash flow immediately versus none. But
Yeah.
then on the other hand, I grew my business and I've always grown it with quality over quantity. And so maybe we're a little slow out of the gate to begin with, but I feel like I have a quality customer base, and that's what's more important than me than just climbing that ladder fast and maybe not having good retention or having that relationship I wanted to with my customers.
Yeah, you're really focused on the relationship, the quality of it, and the longer term. You're not just, you're not a one-stop deal where people just come in and sign up for something and never hear from you again, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm okay to admit there's some great books out there about finding your best customers, and not everybody's meant to be your customer. And I'm 100% okay with that. I'm
Yeah.
totally confident that if I'm not a good fit for you, because for one reason or another, that's okay with me. I mean, there's a lot of business to be had out there, and customers that you just really have to mesh with people and be confident. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be confident in what you want and what
Yeah.
your culture is, and what makes you happy and sleep well at night, if you will, to have a strong business.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder though, when you do find yourself in situations where you're not exactly sure of what you need to do or what your options are there any mentors or guides that you turn to when you're in those situations?
I definitely have hired mentors over the years, and I've done different courses. It just depends on the situation. So I think it's important also to have, as a business owner, it's okay to outsource, if you will. So have a strong bookkeeper, have a good CPA, have a good attorney. Those are things that can take some of that stress off of you.
Yeah.
Have a business coach, have some good masterminds or networking groups where you've got a good friend base, that because sometimes we just need to call and be like, oh my gosh, or what do you think of this? Or even just say, oh my gosh, I can't believe we achieved this. And you need to have that support system around you.
Yeah.
So over the years, absolutely belonging to different groups and coaching.
And now you're also shifting over into that role where you're a mentor and a guide and a coach to others.
Yes,
So the circle continues, right?
it does. And I think everybody has something to offer. So I think that's the important part about finding that good support system, whether it's your peers or hiring a coach or having a good spouse or best friend or you name it, or
Yeah.
your dog.
What do you love most about owning your own business?
The thing I love most is, well, I guess owning my own business is just that flexibility that I get to live the life I want. And I work hard, and I sometimes work 14-hour days. And on the other side, I can take a trip if I need to, because I have that flexibility and I've got great staff that's here. And I think it's just that flexibility. I get to really live the life I want to live and give back to my community. And I sleep really well at night. People always ask me that. They're always like, you must never sleep. You're so busy. And I'm like, no, I sleep really well at
I'll
night.
bet you do.
but we go all day.
Well, that's wonderful. Danielle, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and you've really brought a lot of value to people in what you've shared here. How would you want people to find you if they were interested in asking you any questions?
They can, you can send me an email. You can find me. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn,
Okay.
and see what we can do to help them.
Well, we can definitely include that information in the description that goes along with this podcast. So we'll make sure that gets found.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, and if you're in Colorado, I can help anybody in Colorado insurance wise. And then I've got amazing friends super agents across the country. So if you are in a different state, give me a call, and same thing, I'll connect you with a great positive agent that can help you out as well.
Well, I am certain of that, and positive is the word. You definitely come across as someone who is just ready to be as helpful as the person needs, and you're really going to help them find the right solutions for themselves. And I appreciate that, Danielle. Anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
No, I don't think so. Just find a local agent, build a relationship, and find amazing coaches and people like Franklin. So I appreciate that I got to meet you randomly because we put myself out there. So
strange but true, and we met in an odd place for both of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Without going into too much detail. But anyhow, Danielle, thank you for being my guest, and thank you again for the wonderful insights that you've brought to us today, and particularly, those professional concerns that we need to have as far as insurance is concerned.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. If you enjoyed the show, would you do me a favor and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast host? If you really love it, leave me a review or share it with your circles. If you feel like your career is reaching a dead end, or you're feeling a deep sense of dissatisfaction in your work right now, I help people discover their gifts and then find or create new opportunities that are the best fit for their talent, experience, and lifestyle. Email me at coaching@franklintaggart.com for more information. I also help people start, finish, and launch creative projects, and I offer an ongoing marketing mastermind for solopreneurs and freelancers. More information on these programs and services can be found at franklintaggart.com. Thanks again for spending this time with me.